This is a KMVT Sports presentation.
Sacred Heart Fighting Irish and the St. Francis Lancers in a quest for the West Catholic Athletic League's basketball Holy Grail. Tonight on KMVT, the West Catholic Athletic League basketball championship game. Hello again, everyone. I'm George Devine, and joining me this evening, Andre Polizzi. And Andre, a matchup between two of the league's premier players in St. Francis Jr. Sin-Q Carey and Sacred Heart Cathedral Senior Lorian Russell.
They're two of the best players in the whole CCS, not just the West Catholic Athletic League. They had great semifinal games. Russell putting up 20 points in their semifinal win, and for Sin-Q Carey, he scored 27 to lead the way for the favored St. Francis Lancers.
Talking about the Lancers being the favorites as the one seed in this postseason tournament, they only had to play one game, and that was last night. Sacred Heart Cathedrals had to play twice. They beat Reardon on Wednesday at Kezar Pavilion, and then a big upset last night, 61-50 at St. Ignatius over the second-seeded Wildcats.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that expected St. Ignatius to be here tonight, but they're not. Sacred Heart Cathedral went in and got the job done. Call it an upset, yes, but we'll see how long Sacred Heart Cathedral's legs can take them in this game. The Fighting Irish probably will be a little more tired than the Lancers, and if the Lancers can run the ball a lot, they can force the Irish into some more turnovers and probably get an advantage in this game.
Points off of turnovers have always been a key for the Lancers. A lot of keys coming up in this ball game, including those underneath the basket. You're looking at the Wayne Valley Memorial Gymnasium on the campus of Bellarmine College Preparatory in San Jose, the site of the 1997 West Catholic Athletic League championship game between the Fighting Irish of Sacred Heart and the Lancers of St. Francis. And Lorian Russell just being introduced to this overflow cloud, and Andre Polizzi, quite a matchup. The all-league team just named, and the Sacred Heart Fighting Irish have the task tonight to play against the Player of the Year, Sin-Q Carey.
There you see Sin-Q getting his award, one of the all-time great players here in not just the West Catholic Athletic League, but the CCS and NorCal. And he's put the award down now, and he's ready for some basketball. His team about to be introduced, and this should be a heck of a matchup. We'll see how long Sacred Heart Cathedral can keep its legs and if they can pull off another surprise here 2 nights in a row.
You're talking about legs in the matchup. Sacred Heart Cathedral without a key pair of legs for 4 games at the end of the regular season. Lorian Russell had a deep thigh bruise on his left leg, and he was out of the lineup. He'll be matched up against the backcourt of Charles Tharp and Corey Blick. Pat Yeager will be on a wing for the Lancers. And then, of course, Carey and Matt McGuire up front for St. Francis. So a lot of good matchups in this game. The one key for St. Francis going against Tim Burke's Sacred Heart Cathedral team, St. Francis really doesn't have a true inside player.
Well, St. Francis doesn't really need a true inside player because they can shoot the lights out. You give these guys any open shots, whether it's from 20 feet, 10 feet, or 2 feet, they're probably going to put it in the hoop. If this team shoots better than 50% tonight, the Irish can just about go home now. But that's not how this game is played. You got to get around the defenders and put the ball in the hoop. And if Sacred Heart can keep the defense up at a high tempo, cause some turnovers instead of giving the ball away, and they get the ball inside to Lorian Russell and also to Caesar Smith, Sacred Heart Cathedral has a good chance of pulling off another upset.
A lot of folks made the trip down either 101 or 280 tonight. Wasn't that long of a trip for Steve Filios. 3rd WCAL championship game for Steve in his 5-year career at the Lancer helm. He's never lost in the WCAL championship round. 2 straight championships back in '94 and '95. And now Caesar Smith set to jump it up against the Player of the Year, Sin-Q Carey. Steve Graham is our lead official, and Jim Hess out of the NorCal Association in the city joins him on the floor. Sacred Heart in the green, St. Francis in the white, and the tip is controlled by St. Francis. Tharp, Blick, Carey, McGuire, and Yeager for the Lancers against Russell, Johnson, Smith, Gamina, and Zach Rance. And the quick feed to McGuire. The Lancers are on the board 2-0, 7:45 to go in the first period.
Well, George, I thought they were going to try and pump it from outside already, but first shot they go down low to Matt McGuire. He was all alone for an easy layup. So, hey, if they can mix it up like that, Sacred Heart's in trouble.
Underneath for Caesar Smith. Off the Rance feed, and we're tied at 2.
What we expected from Sacred Heart on their first possession. Get inside to Caesar Smith and try and dominate in there, pick up some fouls.
Yeager out of the corner for the Lancers. McGuire, who scored the first points of the night for St. Francis. And now Carey led the league in scoring and rebounding, feeds McGuire. And Yeager there for the rebound. And the first foul of the night on Albert Johnson, who was a first-team All-League pick.
Well, Albert Johnson with a hack, the 5'10 junior. And Johnson, a very good player and only going to get better as one of the team leaders next year.
Albert Johnson, who is an 8th grader, was ranked as one of the top 25 in the country. Has played in some pretty imposing shadows. Phil Doherty a couple years ago, Justin Love and Joe Brower last year, and then, of course, Lorian Russell this year.
You know, I still don't know how they do that. How can they pick the top 25 8th graders?
I want to know why I wasn't in that as an 8th grader, Andre. 7:05 to go here in the first. 4-2 Lancers, and Russell is whistled for the travel. So a key turnover, Lorian Russell, who's played well in the postseason. 18 last night in the upset at SI. 9 points Wednesday in the home win at Kezar over Reardon. McGuire with a second thought to Tharp. A rare 3 from Charles. Sincu for the rebound. Over to McGuire underneath, fouled by Smith. And so far it's been Matt McGuire doing a lot of the dirty work inside for St. Francis.
Well, St. Francis probably figured that Sacred Heart was going to figure what I figured, that they were going to just shoot from outside and try and dominate from out there with some good shooting. But they're doing exactly the opposite, George. They're going down low to McGuire, and it's working, picking up fouls and scoring points.
So Steve Filios talking things over with Charles Tharp. Steve, a tough playoff coach, has only lost 3 times ever in the WCAL playoffs, and all 3 times to Sacred Heart Cathedral. 6-2 Lancers with 6:43 to go here in the first period. Camino working for position underneath as the ball's knocked free from Rance. Here come the Lancers. Carey stops, pumps, off the back. Carey sets himself up for the board. And Gamina and Blick fighting. The arrow favors the Irish.
Sacred Heart, surprise 9-point winner over St. Ignatius. I guess Luke Whitehead and co wound up being the ones most surprised.
Lorian Russell kept it alive. Does he play baseball too, is my question. Now Al Johnson, his first look of the night. Caesar Smith keeps it alive for Zach Rance, but last touched by a green jersey. And the Lancers get a chance to extend a 6-2 lead with 6 minutes and 9 seconds remaining in the first period.
We mentioned Tharp leading the way with 27 in the semifinal win over Sarah, 74-58. Yeager put in 15. McGuire had only 4. He's already got 4 tonight, and Tharp had 11.
Blick for the 3. Count it. Corey Blick, who only hit 1 of 5 last night in the win over Sarah, starts out 1 for 1, gives the Lancers a 9-3 lead. And that's past Rance. A chance for the Lancers to score some more off an Irish turnover.
Well, so far Sacred Heart Cathedral's not doing much running. As a matter of fact, Tim Burke needs to stop play and get his troops heads in the game on the offensive end. So far their heads are in the game on the defensive end. St. Francis has just had the right plays called so far. Down low passes to McGuire, outside shots for Blick and Tharp, and those are the right calls right now for St. Francis. And it's mixing it up, but Sacred Heart needs to get some control on the offense, get the ball to Caesar Smith like they did on their first shot of the game.
These two clubs played twice in the regular season. St. Francis took both meetings. Talk about what happened the first time we saw these clubs. Allie Thomas and Reggie Cooks joining us tonight. As we get a look at the standings, St. Francis finishing up 11-1, St. Ignatius at 10-2, and the Irish at 8-4 in third place. 2 of those losses were to the Lancers, the other 2 to St. Ignatius. Lancers losing 61-50, I should say the Lancers beating the Irish 61-57 at the Raskob, a game you saw in KMVT, and then 65-56 in overtime up at Kezar Pavilion.
Predictably, the Lancers' only regular season conference loss coming at the hands of St. Ignatius. And that was a 63-51 setback, but the Lancers a great conference year this year and trying to win the title, finish it off.
5:47 to go here in the first. 9-2 out of the Sacred Heart timeout. Andre Polizzi, and I'm George Devine with you at the Bellarmine Wayne Valley Memorial Gymnasium. Thanks for joining us tonight on KMVT. Charles Tharp looking for something right side. And Blick didn't think he was going to take that one. Looking for Carey. Remember, no shot clock in the boys' game, so Steve Filios' troops can take their time. Again for McGuire, the reverse, and Caesar Smith is there for the rebound.
You know what we are watching, though, George? The final ever West Catholic Athletic League game without a shot clock.
That's right, Andre. Next year it comes into play in just the state of California.
35 seconds, by the way. The girls will stay at 30.
California, the only state out of 50 that will use a shot clock in high school ball.
But what you said the first time was right. We're the first of 50. We won't be the last. Other schools will follow.
Joe Gamina gets it ahead to Caesar Smith. Russell denied by Pat Yeager. 4:44 to go here in the first. 9-3 Lancers. Irish looking for their first score in a while. Russell puts up, and he has his first two of the night.
Well, the Irish need to cause some turnovers here. They've had a couple turnovers of their own. They need to force a couple with some heavy pressure defense on the man-to-man.
McGuire on a wing inside to Carey, a reverse of what's been usually happening. Carey from 17. Gets himself in the scoring column. Led the WCAL this year at 22-8 a night.
Sacred Heart cannot let up on defense. They have to be in the St. Francis Lancers' face on every time they have the ball on a pass.
Another Irish turnover. Here comes Tharp and the Lancers. Back for Carey. To the glass on Smith, and Caesar there for the rebound. Loose ball to the floor. Gamina with the slide and the grab. And here come the Irish. Down 11-4 with 3:45 to play. And Gamina with the bump. The foul against McGuire.
Looked like McGuire had gotten set, but when it gets up there just as you set, most of the time the foul, I should say, is going to be called on the defense, and that was the case there.
On number 24, Matt McGuire, first team and first personal.
Here you see that McGuire got there just as the ball got there, and if the guy pushes you over and he's holding onto the ball, that means you were already set, right? That's usually the case, but if it's that close, they're going to always call it on the defense, at least 99% of the time.
Position is 9/10 of the law. Remember that in basketball.
Well, that was the 1/10.
Here comes Charles Tharp and the Lancers. Over for the camping Yeager. Corner three. McGuire has it knocked away by Smith, and Blick is there for the recovery. Blick with the one hand, wipe it off the board. That time, position counted.
Well, the difference here was Blick, as you're going to see, dribbled into the defender. Watch, he'll dribble.
Second team foul.
And they called that foul on the reach. Guy reached in, but Blick was still moving and still driving. Called the offensive foul.
Still 11-4 is number 11, Lorian Russell, is heading off the USF next year with Alejandro Thomas of St. Ignatius to play for Phil Matthews up on the hilltop. Handles against Pat Yeager. Rebound to Carey. And now Carey will handle it forecourt for St. Francis. 3 minutes to play here in the first, 11-4 Lancers. Carey thought about the pick and roll, takes it to the hoop himself. And there for the rebound is Joe Bassani. Bassani had a big night against the Lancers up at Keysar, 12 points in the overtime game when Lorian Russell injured that thigh muscle and then was pretty much ineffective for the remainder of regulation. Didn't play in the overtime. They didn't play in the 4 subsequent ball games.
Well, USF the last couple of years having to live with the fact that their girls team has been doing a lot better than their men's team has. And I'll finish that thought in a second.
Caesar Smith off the Johnson miss.
That's the play Sacred Heart Cathedral needs to use every other time down the floor. But just to finish what I was going to say, USF has had to live with their girls team doing better than the boys team, but they may see one of their better boys teams in years when these two guys join up in the next couple of years.
Charles Tharp, rebound Caesar Smith. 2:10 to play, 11-6 is the score here in the early going. St. Francis with the advantage, Sacred Heart with the ball. Sacred Heart could play St. Ignatius 2 more times this year in theory. Gamina out for Bassani. Rebound to McGuire. Big minutes for McGuire as the player of the year, Sin-Q Carey, is up slowly. You're talking about college recruiting interest. Sin-Q has filled a couple of shoe boxes. He still has the rest of his junior year to go, in addition to his senior year. Corey Blick. Pair of trays, he has 6, 14-6. Lancers by 8 with 1:25 to play. A lot of mail addressed to Sinkyu so far. Bassani gets it. 14-8, minute 12 to play here in the first. For McGuire, who's had the touch tonight on both ends. Into Tharp. Inside of a minute to play. Lancers being very patient right now. And Blick for his third tray. Gets the hat trick. Blick with 9 of the Lancers 17. Caesar Smith keeps it in bounds. And Pat Yeager called for the push on Gamina.
Well, I hate to say this is what we kind of expected. Sacred Heart Cathedral being kind of run around the floor a little bit here in this first quarter. And St. Francis a little bit sharper, and Corey Blick just shooting the lights out, helping lead the way. And if Sacred Heart Cathedral lets this continue into the second and third quarters, they're going to be in some serious trouble. They got to slow this game down come the next couple quarters. If I was them right now, I'd just take the last shot here, even though there's still over 30 seconds left.
30 seconds exactly. Johnson handling the ball. Down to the open, Bassani with his second hoop off the bench. And Bassani, who had 12 the last time these two clubs met up at Kezar, has 4 off the bench here in the early going. 16 seconds to play. Lancers by 7 at 17-10. Charles Tharp back to Carey. Clock to 10. Underneath for Steve Rawls. Nothing happening. Irish with 5 seconds. Forecourt with Russell. Inside for Smith, knocked away by Carey. Gamina to beat the buzzer. And it'll be 17-10 as we've reached the end of the first period here at Bellarmine. The Lancers and the Irish on KMVT. More to come in a moment. Welcome back to the Wayne Valley Memorial Gymnasium at Bellarmine. 17-10 St. Francis as we begin the second period. Down on the College Park campus here in San Jose. Tharp, Rawls, Nick Burley, Sinkyu Carey, and Adam Buck for the Lancers. And the push underneath against the Lancers. Jim Hess with the call. Steve Rawls with his first. 4 team fouls on the Lancers, 2 on the Irish. Irish with their first look at the basket here in the second period. Johnson with Bassani, Russell, Gamina, and Smith. Back up top for Lorian Russell. Bassani drawing some defensive pressure on the zone. The Irish go with the reversal pass. Johnson driving baseline, pass, Carey, scores.
Well, this is good to see. The Irish took some time, got a good shot, made it, and now let's see if they can get some hands in the Lancers' faces and deny them some good shots and make them miss. Maybe turn it over, too. That would be a bonus.
Sinkyu Carey's got a good first step, too. Instead, he goes to Buck. Head fake on Smith, and a basket. Adam Buck with 4 last night, opposite way. Caesar Smith interrupted by Carey. 6:49 to go here in the first half. 19-12 Lancers. Couple of changes. Pat Yeager and Corey Blick back for the Lancers. Chris Bosted on for the first time tonight in the Irish lineup. Caesar Smith stays in the pivot. Back out to Johnson, who scored on that first step layup a moment ago. Andre, you don't see too many first steps as quick as Johnson.
Well, Johnson, pretty much a complete player. The only thing he can't do is that, block shots. But I'm sure if he found someone smaller than him, he could. But Albert going to be a great one in his senior year, already a good one in his junior year.
Lancers set up off the Carey rejection, and here's Lorian Russell. He has 4, 19-14. Lancers by 5. Corey Blick, opposite way for St. Francis. For Yeager. Yeager coming off a 15-point night against Serra with his first 2. Johnson's fade away, count it.
2 points for
Sacred Heart did not miss a field goal last night. They were 8 of 8 in the second period against SI from the floor. Blick, long three, his first miss of the night. Caesar Smith the rebound. 21-15 Lancers, 5:35 to go here in the first half. Irish down by 2 possessions. Buck out on Johnson. Pisani with the miss. Rebound Yeager, area to clear. Counted for Sinkyu.
Well, that time Sacred Heart Cathedral did everything right defensively, and Carey still scored on him. That shows you how good Sinkyu is and why he's the West Catholic Athletic League Player of the Year.
8-point lead for the Lancers. Albert Johnson can't cut it to 5. Sinkyu Carey runs the point. .436 to go, 23-16. Blick can't connect on his 4th after hitting the first 3. And a rebounding foul against the Lancers. So far, a very cleanly played game inside.
Fouls on number 54, Adam Buck, his first
Well, a big test right now for Sacred Heart Cathedral. That man, Tim Burke, taking out Caesar Smith to get his big center arrest. Smith, one of the top players in this league, making a second-team selection this year. And right now, a test for the Irish to see if they can go short with the Lancers and try and beat them that way with Smith getting some rest.
Lagamina pass is stolen by St. Francis. Here come the Lancers with 4:15 to play in the half, up 23-16. Carey, NBA range, off the mark. Russell for the rebound. Lancers bird dogging him in the backcourt. All the way to the goal, scores. Corey Blick answers. 25-18, 3:47 to go here in the first half.
Blick a game high 11 so far. He's just shooting the lights out.
Bosted. And a rebounding foul going against St. Francis. That'll be the 6th team foul on the Lancers. Matt McGuire whistled for the infraction, his 2nd.
Number 24, Matt McGuire, his 2nd personal.
In our first look tonight at Jermon Gray, his older brother Armand led the WCAL in assists about 5 seasons ago for the Irish. Gamina to inbound with Bosted, Rance, Gray, and Johnson on the floor. Working against Blick, McGuire, Tharp, Burley, and Yeager. Right now the Lancers minus Sinkyu Carey in the lineup. Irish down 25-18. This is Zach Rance. And Johnson will set up the slow running offense for the Irish. 3:10 to play. Lancers staying in the matchup 2-3. Bosted with the flash inside. Irish won the title last year. They look to defend tonight. Lancers won it 94-95. Johnson for 2. Burley, the rebound. Long feed for Blick. Has Yeager out in front. The pass past Johnson. Last touch by Yeager.
Well, Yeager kind of surprised by that. He let it go without a fight, thinking that it had gotten a piece of the Sacred Heart Cathedral player just before it went flying out of bounds. But no, said our referee, Steve Graham.
Steve Filios saying Al Johnson last touched it. Irish down 25-18 with 2:30 to go here in the half. Rance driving baseline. Was called for the push after he released the ball. You only see those about once a year, Andre. That's where you get rid of the ball, you drive into the man, and it's not a charge. One of those you make the call situations.
Well, the focus of the game is always where the ball is, and the refs trained to look that way.
Blick gets it. Blick with 14. Lancers by 10, 28-18 with 2:09 to play here in the first half.
You cannot leave that man alone.
Ryan Russell can't answer. Here comes Charles Tharp. Blick to his right, Carey the trailer. Blick can't convert. And Sinkyu there for the putback and the return. Carey with 6 after that scavenger hunt. 30-18, Lancers by 12, 1:42 to play.
Very fresh legs on that play by Sinkyu Carey. He got up there and got himself and his team a couple more chances on that last possession.
Smith stripped by Tharp. Carey calling for the ball in the right corner. Yeager out on the left side, Burley in the left block.
Did you notice how short a time Caesar Smith was gone? They need him out there on the floor.
They need those boards. He tips that one to Lorian Russell. Gamino, Russell, Smith, Rance, and Jermon Gray with the basketball for the Irish. 1:12 to play here in the first half. Rance, the open jumper, and Blick there for the board. Lancers can extend their lead to 15 on this trip down.
1 minute remaining.
And the big question right here is, do they hold for the last shot with 58 seconds to play?
Well, they didn't get the chance. Sacred Heart Cathedral, though, can't find themselves in that situation. They need a basket and then get the ball back on some turnovers and get this one closer before half. But as I suggest that plan, they frustrate Tim Burke by throwing it away.
Tim Burke, who will loosen that tie where you can't see it inside of his vest by the time this game is over tonight. Tim, the dean of the WCAL Varsity Basketball Coaching Corps. In his 11th season, took over for Jerry Phillips, who was there for 26.
Well, no matter what happens tonight in the end of this half and the second half, and whether or not Sacred Heart Cathedral can pull it out and repeat, this team's coming back with juniors again next year, and they're going to have a shot to be right back on top next year, whether or not they are tonight. Still, they've got a great chance to be there tonight as well.
20 seconds to play. Still a lot of mountain left to climb here in the first half of this one. 30-18 Lancers. Burley into Tharp. 12 seconds. Back to Carey. Carey hit a buzzer beater 2 years ago against the Irish and nails that one. He has 8.
They won't be able to do that next year.
Johnson trying to beat the clock. Long 3. And the Lancers with the commanding lead at the half, 32-18. Their quest for a 4th WCAL championship halfway done here at Bellarmine. I'll be back with more in a moment on KMVT. Welcome back to the Bellarmine Wayne Valley Gymnasium. Halftime between the Lancers and the Fighting Irish, and the 4th Estate well represented at tonight's WCAL championship game. On my right, Darren Sabedra of the San Jose Mercury News, and on my left, Merv Harris of the San Francisco Examiner. And Merv, you saw the Fighting Irish their last 2 games, Wednesday in the win against Reardon, last night in the win against St. Ignatius. What's different about tonight?
They're playing about 40% the intensity of the first 2 nights. Maybe it's too much to ask high school boys to expend the energy 3 nights in a row, but it's a different St. Ignatius Sacred Heart team tonight than the one that upset St. Ignatius last night. They're not playing with the same fire, not playing with the same defensive intensity. Lorian Russell is trying to get everybody else moving, but Zach Rance and Pete and Joe Gumina especially are not playing as well at forward as they have the last couple of nights.
Darren, you've got a good chance to look all around the Central Coast section and see the various teams and the various divisions. And the St. Francis Lancers will be heading off to Division II. Let's talk about some of the competition they're going to see in the Division II draw coming up.
I think the game that everyone's going to be waiting for is the Piedmont Hills St. Francis matchup. Piedmont Hills has kind of had its way with the competition down here in the San Jose area, and obviously St. Francis has been extremely strong up in the West Catholic Athletic League. So I'd be very surprised if either one of those teams weren't in the Division II final. It would be shocking.
Merv, in all your years as a sports writer, you've been in a lot of smoky rooms and a lot of seating meetings. Let's talk about the Division I bracket in CCS. Sacred Heart Cathedral obviously losing twice to St. Ignatius during the regular year. Does their win last night give them the shoe-in for the 1 seed?
I wouldn't think so. I think that probably St. Ignatius will be the #1 seed. I learned tonight that Bellarmine will compete, Bellarmine will compete, even though the season they suspended some players, and we all know that story. But Bellarmine will compete in Division I, along with Sacred Heart. Reardon will not compete this year. Their record was not 500 either in league or regular season. Cerro San Mateo will compete, and we think that probably the CCS Division I will look a lot like our CCS WCAL tournament has looked like.
Darren, you're pretty familiar with the other divisions in the CCS. Let's talk about some of the other clubs, especially Division III, where Archbishop Mitty is going to be. Also to interest of some of our viewers in the Mountain View and Los Altos area, where Mountain View and Los Altos are going to play.
Division III will be very interesting. I mean, you have Del Mar in Division III. You also have, let's see, Del Mar has been really strong. I mean, they've played Piedmont Hills neck and neck. They split this year. Los Gatos is in Division III. Los Gatos will probably finish tied for first in its league with Milpitas, so that's a team to look for. And then also Hillsdale. I mean, Hillsdale is undefeated, and you know, they would probably be the favorite at this point, though I haven't seen Hillsdale play. But
they're a nice team. I've seen them 3 times. They're a very good team with a 6'4" player named Arjuna Manning-Lene, who is something to see. He's about as thin as a pencil, but he can really play.
We continue our whirlwind tour of Bay Area prep basketball. And Merv, you also cover the North Coast section quite extensively, and along with Phil Wong up in the city, the Academic Athletic Association. Let's talk about beyond the CCS, the types of teams that we're going to be seeing in the NorCal playoffs this year.
Well, the team that everyone thinks is the best team in the Bay Area is St. Joseph's of Alameda, whose coach, Frank Laporte, is trying to beat pancreatic cancer and lead his team to a championship at the same time. They've won the Alameda Contra Costa County League Championship with no trouble. They have the best player in the Bay Area, 6'4" Ray Young, and if I had to pick a favorite, it would be St. Joseph. Pittsburgh has played very well. Pittsburgh has beaten De La Salle and Northgate this week. Northgate is in Division II and will be a strong NorCal Division II entry. In the Sacramento area, Jesuit has lost recently, but it looks like Jesuit and maybe Grant are the 2 teams up there. But if I had to pick one team to represent Northern California in Division I, right now it'd be St. Joseph.
Let's talk about a couple other things before we go here. Darren, this is several years for you now in this area covering prep basketball. And the WCAL tournament, always something the fans look forward to. I just mean the writers look forward to. And last year, a number of WCAL principals wanted to do away with this event. And your thoughts on them keeping it around?
I've enjoyed it. My first chance to see the WCL tournament was 2 years ago right here in this gymnasium when I saw St. Francis and Bellarmine go at it. I believe St. Francis won that game and then went on to win the Division II championship at the state level. Last year, obviously, Sacred Heart Cathedral and Bellarmine had some nice games, and then it culminated in the finals of the WCL tournament. To me, it would be a shame if this tournament, you know, was taken away from the kids.
I think we've saved the tournament, but the next job is to get back to just one site rather than the separate gyms. The semifinals would have been a lot of fun, played one place rather than playing in 2 places.
And that one place tonight is Bellarmine. When we come back, the second half between the Fighting Irish and the Lancers. Second half action here at Bellarmine between Sacred Heart Cathedral and St. Francis. George Devine with you along with Andre Polizzi. Albert Johnson back to Lorian Russell into Caesar Smith. Over for Bassani. Gamina inside for the Irish. Bassani driving baseline on McGuire. Met by Carey off the back. Gamina the rebounds. And he scores with the putback.
Gamina for 2.
Gamina had 9 the last time these 2 clubs met. And it's 32-20. St. Francis with the lead on the basketball. Yeager, Blick, McGuire, Tharp, and Carey for the Lancers. Blick doing the inbounding. Stolen by Johnson. A chance for the Irish to come inside of single digits with a tray. Yeager there for the board. 50 seconds gone by here in the second half. Blick open in the corner for his 5th tray of the night. Cans it.
What was Sacred Heart Cathedral thinking on that defensive possession, George? Leaving the shooters all alone outside the 3-point line, just pass it around until one of them decided to shoot.
And the Irish forced to burn their second timeout as Albert Johnson was avoiding the knockout count in the backcourt.
Hi, my name is Gina Gasalvis, and you're watching basketball at KMBT.
Lancers right now on a 10-2 run since 3:56 remain in the first half. Right now, 6:47 remain in the third period, and it's 35-20. St. Francis Sacred Heart with the basketball. Bassani stripped by McGuire, and the Irish keep it.
Well, the Irish need to do a better job of taking care of the basketball on the offensive end, and on the defensive end, put a hand in somebody's face. Don't let them shoot wide open, especially the three-pointers, and especially by Corey Blick.
Corey Blick with 5 trays tonight. Tharp with a steal.
That's not taking better care of the basketball.
The Hawaii-bound Tharp with the steal right there into Carey. And the foul against Caesar Smith, who's hot with Jim Hess.
Fouls on number 42, Caesar Smith. First team foul is second personal.
The second personal on Smith, first team foul of the half either way. 6:28 to play in the third period, 35-20 Lancers. Chance to extend a 15-point margin into Carey. Turnaround gets it.
Well, Merv Harris talked about at the half what I had mentioned before the game. It's up to Sacred Heart Cathedral to see if they have the legs to compete tonight. So far, they haven't.
Gamina. Rebound McGuire. Ryan Russell called for the foul.
Well, Caesar Smith getting frustrated now. You better be careful. He's going to get a technical. And I think he may be the one to come off the floor here just to cool down.
Zach Rance is back for Bassani, so back to the original starting crews for both clubs. Jim Hess out of San Francisco, Steve Graham out of the South Bay, the two-man crew. Blick for 6. Yes! $20 points for Corey Blick. 20-point lead for the Lancers, 40-20. St. Francis right now twice as good with 5:40 to play in the third. And a chance to get a little better. Alejandro Thomas, who fell with the St. Ignatius Wildcats last night, to Sacred Heart, watches on. Charles Tharp, the bump from Smith, the basket. Tharp averaging 7.5 a night with his first 2 there. 5:15 to play, 42-20 Lancers. Russell with the recovery. Smith off the front, Carey there for the rebound.
Caesar threw a light elbow there, but got away with it. He's really, really frustrated.
Charles Tharp, count it. Timeout, Tim Burke and the Irish.
Well, you're seeing, George, right now why it's very hard for a #1 seed to lose in the WCAL tournament. St. Francis with the extra night off, playing just their second game in this tournament, while Sacred Heart Cathedral playing their third. Not to mention the fact that Sacred Heart Cathedral had to overcome a tougher semifinal opponent in St. Ignatius. And St. Francis doing what we talked about at the start. They're getting those wide open, long-range shots and just passing the ball around, causing turnovers, partly because the Irish are tired and partly because they're just not making good plays and good decisions on the offensive end. But this is why it's very tough for a #1 seed to lose in this type of format tournament. If you go out and get the wins during the regular season, you earn that extra game off, and you earn the right to be not just regular season conference champions, but conference tournament champions, and that's how you keep it as one team is the best.
Right now, St. Francis on a 12-0 binge in the last 3:40. Remember, they led at the half, 32-18. Right now, 44-20.
Well, that also means they're on a 27-8 run since the first quarter ended.
The numbers tell the story. The Irish have 1 timeout for the rest of the ball game. Al Johnson has it knocked away by Blick. Tim Burke's got to hope his troops don't panic.
I think you're at the point where if you use this third timeout like Tim Burke just has, you're really saying, well, this is it, guys. This is our one more chance to get back in this ball game. We got to make the run starting now, or at least one of a couple runs. And again, they didn't take care of the basketball right there, George.
You said run. Here are the Lancers. Carey, and the foul. A frustrated Tim Burke looks on in despair.
Well, here, going to see the replay. Carey coming along, takes the trail pass and puts it in. And all SHC can do is foul at this point.
To continue the play.
But what I was saying about that, using that third timeout, is this is our chance to make one of those runs right here. We got to do it now, or make at least half of it back and then make another run in the fourth quarter. And if you're going to not do that now, the fourth timeout's pretty meaningless anyway, because you're just going to put in the scrubs eventually.
St. Q's hit 13 straight free throws dating back to last night. Albert Johnson with her first 3 points in the second half. But could it be a case of too little, too late? 47-23. Lancers trying to pick up their third WCAL title in the last 4 years. And another Irish foul coming right up.
Irish foul.
Well, Tim Burke not all that happy with the refereeing, but if things don't change, he's not going to look back and say, well, the refs cost us this one. We just didn't take care of the ball very well, and we didn't play very good defense. And we were tired.
The Irish legging it out right here. Russell has 8. And Tharp is called for the charge. Finally, something for the San Franciscans to cheer about. 4 minutes to play here in the third. 47-25 Lancers. Charles Tharp runs through the defensive signals. Gamina off the Russell miss. Foul on his way up. Take your pick, Burley or Blick.
Well, if the Irish are going to do something, now's the time. They're getting a little bit of momentum off that three-pointer. A couple fouls called against the Lancers. And a chance to get back within 20 here and make a game of it with a run to end the third quarter out. They've got 3:46 in this third quarter. Missing free throws won't help, but a run right here would give them a shot at it in the fourth quarter.
Joe Gamina connects on the second. He has 3. Gamina, a veteran of a lot of close games. Played his pre-high school ball at the Salesian Boys Club in North Beach. Here comes Lorian Russell leading the Irish charge. Over Carey, but St. Q got the rebound to Tharp, and the foul's on Smith. That's 3 on Caesar. 5 on the Irish here in the second half.
Here you get another look at it. Wild chase for the ball.
Caesar Smith picks up his third personal.
Caesar having a tough third quarter, but he's going to gamely battle on, as you would expect of a second-team All-WCAL player.
Lancer ball.
The only time the Lancers lost this year is when they were without Charles Tharp's services up at St. Ignatius.
Well, credit St. Ignatius with a good game that night. St. Ignatius is a very good team, but upset last night, not here tonight.
And I was so surprised they lost at home, especially with a very good 6th man unit. One of the better ones in all the Bay Area prep basketball arenas out at Murphy Pavilion and Drucker Floor. 3 minutes to play, 47-25 Lancers here in the third period. Carey for the tray. Burley, the rebound. And he's whistled for the travel.
Steve Filios, one of the great coaches here in the West Catholic Athletic League, a league filled with great coaches. Mike Willard, former Bellarmine assistant over at Archbishop Mitty. Kevin Restani, of course, over at AR. And Pat Schneider doing a good job here at Bellarmine despite some suspension problems this year.
Foul against the Irish puts the Lancers in the bonus with 2:40 to play.
And of course, we can't forget Don Lippy over at SI.
Don Lippy last year really wanted to be in the same CCS bracket as Sacred Heart. He had to play Milpitas in the first round, took care of the Vikings, and then came on and beat the Irish up at USF and then beat them twice after that before falling the other night to Tim Burke's troops up in the city. Wildcats last year with upsets in the CCS over Sacred Heart and then in NorCal over Balboa. Took care of the two favorite teams in San Francisco. Still 47-25 with 2:30 to play here in the third. Carey watched by Zach Rance. Out to Blick, picked up by Gamina. Jump stop, the shot no good, and Gamina feeds Rance. Johnson with a wild one. Gamina into the corner. Caesar Smith, the left-hander is good. He has 7, he's averaging 13 a game on the year.
Well, Caesar scored 4 points early, but he hadn't been heard from on the score sheet until now. Been heard from on the foul sheet a couple times, and he's really frustrated, but they need to give him the ball a little more.
Tharp drawing 4 defenders, and Gamina to the 5th grabs the rebound. Here comes Albert Johnson, blocked away by Blick. Kept alive by Blick, but on the sideline. How about that hustle right in front of our broadcast position?
Out of bounds, Irish ball.
.133 to play here in the third. 47-28. Johnson makes it 47-30. He has 9. Here's Charles Tharp. Zach Rance. 49-32, 1 minute to play in the third. And the Lancers want a timeout. Sacred Heart Cathedral, the Director of Athletics, Joanne Ramono at the center of your screen, making a rare appearance in San Jose. Right now, her Irish on a 12-2 run after the Lancers went on a 12-0 tear of their own. 49-32, 55 seconds left. Carey trying to break the press, ahead to Tharp. No whistle on Russell. Charles Tharp called for his second charge.
Wow, Charles Tharp is just so lightning fast. Did you see how fast he got up before, beat his man? I know he got called for the charge, and Steve Filios doesn't like it, but look at how fast this man is. Zoom, 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 up the court, dish it off, but call for the charge. What were you saying in the first half about you don't see that very often, where the guy passes it off and hits the man and they call the foul?
Well, they're supposed to call a block rather than a charge or call a push.
Ask and ye shall receive.
You know, Andre, I go that fast and it's traffic school. 47-32, 47 seconds, let's make it 49-32.
Getting very serious for a moment. Sacred Heart Cathedral trying to finish the quarter strong, and if they do, they can make a run in the fourth. Boy, that would have really helped if it had gone in.
Sen-Q Carey for McGuire. McGuire with his first point since the early minutes. And the Lancers a chance for the last shot. Yeager with 11 seconds. Glides in on Russell. He has 6. 4 seconds left. And Smith will heave it up to beat the buzzer. Not a bad three-pointer attempt by the big man. 53-32 St. Francis. The fourth quarter coming up on KMVT. 1 quarter left here at the Wayne Valley Gymnasium on the Bellarmine campus. The Lancers right now with a commanding edge. But Sacred Heart Cathedral has run a little bit. Even though they were outscored 12-2 to open the third period, they came back and made it a 21-14 period. Corey Blick back in the Lancer lineup, joined by McGuire, Carey, Yeager, and then Adam Buck on the far side of the floor. Chris Bostead applies the defensive pressure. Now Blick. Can't hit on his 7th tray. and it's out of bounds to the Irish.
Did I actually see Corey Blick miss? Boy, he hasn't missed much tonight. Having a great game.
Right now, 6 of 9 on his three-pointers.
Well, if he could shoot 66%, I'd let him shoot that many times too.
Al Johnson's 2 goes awry. And Russell, call for the reach in. It's free throws coming up for Sinkyu Carey, who hit 11 of 11 last night in the win over Serra.
I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Lancers at the free throw line here in this fourth quarter.
Russell picks up his second foul.
So foul number 2
checks into the Lancer lineup.
on Lorian Russell.
St. Francis in the bonus. We'll shoot 1-on-1.
8 team fouls on the Irish. And Carey on the year, 72% from the line.
Got one. One left.
Sinkyu looking for his 14th point. We're going to put the Lancers back up by 19. Does. Make it by 23, 55-32. Opposite way, Russell. Picked by McGuire. Here comes the Lancer charge. Bosted. And last touch by Yeager.
Well, St. Francis really been in control of this game since the middle point of the second quarter when they went on that run. And Sacred Heart Cathedral trying to just get something going here and make one last ditch run.
Part of that game would be Caesar Smith inside, and he'll go to the line after the Lancer foul called against Matt McGuire.
Well, anytime you get points on the board while the clock is stopped, and the way you do that is free throws. That's part of the battle, but now you got to make them. And Caesar Smith has had a frustrating night. What started off so well with the first basket of the game for the Irish, after being down 2-0, Caesar Smith looks like he was going to have one of those nights, but it's been the opposite.
Gamina back for the Irish. Smith coming off 17 points and 8 rebounds last night in the win over St. Ignatius. The ball takes a fortuitous bounce to Corey Blick. 7 minutes to play here in regulation, 55-32. Lancers control things by 23 points. Back for Tharp. He makes it look easy with 8 points.
Assisted by Carey.
Johnson, who's got a great first step, matched up against one of the speedsters of the league, Tharp, goes into Smith. And he muscles for 2 points. He now has 9.
Well, the one thing this game will do for Caesar Smith is it'll make him hungrier to get back to that championship level that they were at a year ago and try and win it twice in 3 years.
McGuire hit by Rands as he was sandwiched between Rands and the 6'8 Caesar Smith.
A lot of juniors on both teams, of course, George.
13,
only Ryan Russell of Sacred Heart pretty much won't be back for them. Of course, Chris Bosted, also a senior, but he doesn't play very much. And for St. Francis, Blick, Noonan, and Tharp and Gross won't return. So we could very well see these 2 teams right back in this position next year, although SI and a revamped Bellarmine team, and of course, I'm forgetting somebody. Sarah will have something to say about that.
How about Mitty, too?
Well,
Mike Willard always.
Well, when you're losing Jason Byer and you don't have much coming up from the JV ranks, well, not that Mike Willard's not a good coach, because he is a good coach and he's done a lot and made Jason Byer an even better player than I thought he was this year.
Corey Blick off balance, loses it into the bench. Nice catch, Steve Filios. Steve looking for WCAL championship number 5, make it number 3 in his 5th season at the Lancer Command. 5:59 to play. Russell.
I'll tell you what's not good, George. The team I forgot is, of course, AR. You know, there used to be a time when you could not talk about WCAL basketball without starting with AR, and I just failed to mention them there. So
the AR being Archbishop Reardon.
Of course, a heck of a job ahead of Kevin Rastani to restore the glamour to that program. Here's another look at that last possession. Looked like a pretty clean strip, but Albert Johnson Jr. He didn't call for the reach nonetheless.
Albert with his third. 9 team fouls on the Irish. Carey hits the first, has 16 points. St. Carey, of course, back next year.
Carey has 1 left.
Was the freshman of the year in the Central Coast section, the sophomore of the year. And was on the All-State underclass teams both years. Preseason All-American. Now with 17, the Lancers with a 59-38 lead with 5:46 to play here in the ballgame.
And as we saw at the top of the broadcast, WCAL Player of the Year.
That's right.
Of course, it's a good thing they don't really pick a WCAL Coach of the Year and announce it on the same night, because you'd have a heck of a fight to get it away from Steve Filios this year.
Well, my vote would go to Pat Schneider as Corey Blick scores. They get Yeager.
Well, Don Lippy and, of course, Tim Burke also doing a fine job this year, but Steve Filios, a case of having some of the most talent and getting the most out of that most talent. That's hard to do. Just ask Phil Jackson.
Joe Gamino with the bucket. 61-40, 5 minutes to play. My vote goes to Schneid because he had to do something very unpopular. He had to suspend several established players, went 0-12 with younger kids and kids that he cut, and put discipline in front of winning. St. Carey has 19. Lancers lead by 23, 63-40, matching their biggest edge of the night.
Well, as an alumnus of this school, that was a very disappointing situation, but Schneider definitely did the right thing. And Bellarmine will rebuild, of course, with and without some of those players.
Ryan Russell. It's that one. He has 13.
By the way, we're on the subject of Bellarmine. Thanks to Leo Ruth and all his people for helping us out with the broadcast here tonight. You know, I still hate the way this place is lighted, but that's just a small gripe.
Charles Tharp. He has 10. 3 above his season average, 4:06 to play, 65-43. Russell. And Smith. And 1.
Caesar Smith, all WCAL second team this year. If he's not all WCAL team first team next year, I would be very surprised. There is a lot of talent in this conference, though, so he's going to have some competition at that center position, but Caesar Smith definitely the second best, if not the best center in the league right now.
Not a big fan of his footwork, though. I'd like to see his inside footwork improve over the summer. Can't connect on the free throw. He has 11 points.
He's going to be working on his free throw shooting, too, George.
Pat Yeager. He has 10, 67-45. 3:44 to play until they cut down the nets. And Russell watches Carey grab the rejection. Charles Tharp, cross court for Yeager, up for Blick. And he can score going to the goal as well. 22 points for Blick. And a great night for the 6'2 senior out of Woodside.
Al Johnson picks up his 4th personal.
Corey Blick having a great game. Shows he's not just an outside shooter, but he can also drive, pick up the foul, and get the basket on the way in.
Al Johnson whistled for his 4th foul as the Irish go into the timeout. They are done in the timeout department with 3:30 to play. And let's talk about the upcoming Central Coast Section tournament. Andre Merv Harris and Darren Saavedra and I touched on it a little bit. But the St. Francis Lancers, really only Piedmont Hills to contend with in Division II, but there's always a landmine or two out there.
Well, I still don't see Piedmont Hills as one of the top 3 teams in the Division II bracket. I know that's a sin to say at this point, but I really don't think Piedmont Hills has had the competition that St. Francis and a few other teams have had, and I really think St. Francis is going to go pretty much unchallenged in that Division II bracket.
I remember sitting down back earlier this month when they issued the division declaration lists and the schools say which division they want to play in. I found all of 4 teams in the Division II draw with a winning record, including St. Francis and Piedmont Hills.
Give me a quick tournament.
And last year Division I only had 5 schools in it. This year we'll have about 8. But still, I mean, the CCS has too many divisions. It's a system set up for the southern section with 700 schools. 3 divisions would suit us perfectly up here.
Well, let me just say one thing about that. It's not a perfect system. There is no system that is perfect, but you have to keep it in perspective. The schools that are the best It should not be based on enrollment. You should base on the teams that are the best, clearly the best, based on competition percentage, league percentage, and winning percentage, should be playing in Division I no matter what their enrollment is, whether it's 550 or 1,550, George.
3:19 to go, 70-45. It's a mop-up operation for the Lancers. Sing-Q carry with the head fake on McBride. And Carey with 21. 21st time this year he's gone over the 20-point mark. Remember, he missed a double-double by 3 assists the other night. McBride blocked by Carey. It's been that kind of night for the Irish.
You didn't, by the way, well, let that shot go first. You didn't, by the way, well, go ahead.
McBride gets in the scorebook. 6'2" junior.
I wanted to get you to get that in, but I'm kind of wondering, because you kind of whetted my appetite to know in the first half, what envelope is on top of that mail pile in Sing-Q Carey's shoebox?
There are several from the Pac-10, believe it or not. Getting a lot of looks from several Pac-10 schools.
Anything with a desert? Anything with a tree? How about Smog? Any hints?
Smog is good, desert is good, tree is good. Steve Filios works at that tree camp every now and then at Stanford.
Any talk of him going where there's rain?
There's a little talk of that too. How about the Palouse country while we're on it too? Or the Space Needle country?
Well, that's where I was talking about with the rain.
I was thinking Oregon. 2:18 to play, 72-47.
They get as much rain as Seattle does, yes, so you could have been talking about either one of those two. How about talk of places where there's naked guys?
Oh, I don't know. I think each school in the league has a locker room.
Yes, it's garbage time for us too.
David Noonan on the floor for the Lancers, as Steve Filios, if they allowed smoking in here, would light up the Red Auerbach cigar. So Jason Jackson, Mike Gross coming on for the Lancers.
Well, interesting, Sacred Heart Cathedral has waved the white flag, but
and the rim is bent. The rim is out of commission. Do not adjust your set at home. The rim here at the Wayne Valley Gymnasium is off kilter. And they're trying to get it back on kilter.
Well, not just that the rim is bent, but I'm kind of a little disappointed that they would do this now after the Irish have taken everybody off the floor. And now Steve Filios will clear his bench.
Well, where does that register on the Richter scale?
I think they know this game is on Channel 6 and they wanted to get that one on tape. They got it. That's a championship moment right there.
Joe Bassani back over to McBride. Pat Dunn works inside for the Irish. And the rebound belongs to Mike Gross. He was around for a CCS Division I football title along with Charles Tharp, who stays on. Inside to Gross, pushed by Dunn. And here come the Irish. Jesus Navarez losing it out of bounds, but last touch by Joe McCarthy. 1:30 to play, 74-47. And Corey Blick checks out for the Lancers. The Irish will get another shot in the Division I draw. Hugs and high fives for Corey, who finishes with 23. Bassani. And Mike Gross there for the rebounds. Joe McCarthy. And here comes Navarez. And the foul is against McCarthy, his first. So a minute 10 to play here. 74-47, the Lancers will pick up their 4th ever WCAL basketball title and their 3rd in the last 5 years under head coach Steve Filios.
Well, and what, these two teams have won it the last 5 years combined?
Well, the Irish won it last year. That's right. In my driveway, you got to call that one. 55 seconds to play. Pat Dunn with the tray a second ago. Rebound to Gross. And Dunn with the push. Dunn played fullback in a backfield that featured Jamar Shepard this past year for the Fighting Irish. Shepard off to Cal, along with Andre Carter of Oak Grove.
Everybody getting a chance to get into the game.
Correction. Second foul, number 53, Pat Dunn, his first personal.
So Gross will go to the line for the pair. Gross has made 5 of 11 free throws on the season. Sacred Heart not in the WCAL in football. They opted out 7 seasons ago after a very disastrous 1989 campaign. Brother Chris Brandy, who's the principal up at Sacred Heart, has been very indecisive on whether they're going to come back in the league or not. They've had the talent to compete, and I believe they should be back there.
How much pressure, though, would the WCAL commissioners have to relieve, though, to let them back in? Would they want to say, hey, you guys went out on us, we don't have to let you back in for football? Or do you think they'd just say, hey, come back? Be interesting.
It'll be interesting if the WCAL looks at expansion. They might for 2 years from now.
Irish ball.
I still think you gotta, if you want to come play football with us, you gotta come play just about everything else. That's not to say that De La Salle would have to come play everything, but a lot would be expected, I would think.
Jesus Navarez draws the foul at the opposite end. 23 seconds left until the celebration begins for St. Francis. 74-52. The Lancers have been in command since the second period. Jesus Navarez, a 5'9" junior out of St. Peter's Grammar School, up in the intermission. On the line. Same neighborhood that produced Joe Cronin, who was the American League president for many years, and along with Harry Heilman, one of 2 Baseball Hall of Famers to have attended Sacred Heart.
Got one.
McCarthy with the left hand draws the foul. Navarez called for the infraction.
Picks up his first personal.
Right now it's all inconsequential. The Lancers will improve to 25-2
Joe McCarthy
on the season, and most likely will be the #1 seed in Division II, as they're ranked 1st in the Central Coast section and 12th in the state. And the second one is good for McCarthy. 75-53, inside of 15 seconds to play. Dunn, who has 5, now has 7. McBride, and that'll do it. The Lancers win by 20, 75-55 here at Bellarmine over Sacred Heart Cathedral. And it's the 3rd WCAL title in 5 years for the Lancers, and their 4th ever. And Andre Polizzi, the Lancers, left few doubts tonight.
Left few doubts, shot very well. We talked about whether or not Sacred Heart Cathedral would be tired. It turned out that they were. Had to play a little too much, and St. Francis a little too fresh for them. And what can you say about the game Corey Blick had? He was just phenomenal.
Corey Blick tonight with 23 points, living up to his first team all WCAL billing. The sharpshooting senior out of Woodside canned 6 of 9 trays tonight. What an evening for Corey Blick and the St. Francis Lancers. That's not all for KMVT's playoff coverage. Stay with us during the Central Coast section playoffs as we follow all of your favorite local teams. And for tonight's game, we'd like to thank our producer and director, Lazarus Sargent, and his Yolanda Harmon, our technical director, and our camera crew here at Bellarmine. Now for Andre Polizzi and our statistician, Casey McGuire and Pat Segerson, this is George Devine wishing a very pleasant good evening as the St. Francis Lancers pick up a WCAL title this evening, 75-55 over Sacred Heart Cathedral.